Parents of Reddit, how do you feel when your kid brings back a girlfriend, boyfriend? How do you decide whether you like them or not? Not a parent, but this was my experience with my mother when I was a teen. So, as a teen, my mother pulled me to the side and gave me the gay talk. You know, the "I'll still love you even if you were gay" talk. I asked her why she thought I was gay and she said it was because I never bring any girls to the house. Guess what I did within the next few days? I brought a girl in the house. Guess what my mother did? She kicked her out and gave me a lecture on how inappropriate it was to bring girls to the house. Yes, it makes no sense. Well, next time, bring a boy home. My daughter 13, wanted me to meet her first real boyfriend. I was nice and pleasant, but I knew it wouldn't last cause he was all looks and no brains. Of course, as junior high relationships go, it was about a 2-month ordeal. I think all parents should try and be cordial, unless the person feels like a serial killer or something. I'm gonna warn you that when I was 13 I also got my first real boyfriend. Lasted 7 years. As someone who deeply regrets that I lost my virginity at 13, please educate her about sex now that she's at an age where she's interested in guys. I'm sure my parents never thought I would be having sex, but I was. Thankfully, I never got pregnant or had an STDs, and obviously the guy wasn't in it just for sex, but it really screwed up my views on relationships, sex, and love. Sorry, I know it's horribly off topic, but I feel it is my duty as a bad decision maker to help others to not make the same bad decision. My 4-year daughter introduced me to the 5-year neighbor kid as a BF. She told me he's really good at running fast and he appreciates snails as much as she does. Needless to say, this is a keeper. What is it about fast boys? I remember in grade school the fastest dudes had every girl swooning over them. My elementary school husband was the fastest kid on the playground. That's right. He was so fast, I had to put a ring on it. My daughter just started dating. She was mortified when I picked them up and asked if everything was Gucci. Next time ask if they're having a yeet time. Doesn't work in the sentence, makes it better. When they interact and help out the rest of the family. When my daughter didn't understand her homework and then her sister's boyfriend helped her, it showed how much he actually cared. I like to think I would do this, but I probably wouldn't understand the homework either. My mother-in-law assumed I was some sort of player when I first met her before my first date with my wife. Even told my wife that she assumed I went on lots of dates back at school. Joke's on her. I spent the entirety of my freshman year before I met my wife, enjoying the sweet internet speed of my dorm room and playing the shit out of Halo 3, Mass Effect 1 and 2, picking up drunk dorm mates from house parties at 3 a.m., and going on exactly 0 dates. After years of getting to know my mill, she just didn't want her daughter to get into a long-distance relationship, then end up moving out of state with me if we got married and I was still there, which ended up happening. Whoops. I decided that I liked my future son-in-law when I learned that my university-aged daughter had been slacking off. I phoned her and he picked up and tried to take the bullet for her, blaming himself for distracting her. I was so impressed with his altruism that I decided I liked him right then. 12 years later she's doing her PhD and they're still together. Are you sure he wasn't just honest and helping her slack off? She was probably slacking him off. She got the D and he got the A. My mother has always been accepting of everyone I've ever dated, but realistic about their faults. My family immediately welcomes them with open arms, but just warns me if they seem off for whatever reason. I think it's a decent system. This is how my mom operates. She let me make a lot of mistakes, but always told me what she saw from her perspective and her concerns. However, it always ended with, as long as you're happy, that's what matters. When my oldest daughter introduced her first serious boyfriend, he was an awkward kind of guy, was pretty unremarkable, but he got super animated about topics that interested him. I had a chat with him about my daughter, he got animated. They've been married for 9 years. Good guy, works hard, is a staunch advocate for his wife, and I love his smile when he looks at their kids. My oldest son's first girlfriend was not an emotional investment he was willing to make, she was pretty, but that was it. I scolded him, he got defensive, almost married her, but she made the mistake of asking my son about my money. About a year later he brought home a beautiful, talented woman with an electric personality and more self-confidence than even my cocksure eldest, and I was never more proud of him than when he took that dive. Their kids are incredible, great couple. My second daughter just introduced us to a college friend of hers. He seems like a decent person. He's young, but he's got a head on his shoulders and seems able to conduct himself politely. I'll need more time to figure it out. My youngest son had a high school sweetheart girlfriend that's now his college girlfriend. When I first met her she was 9, so I'm pretty enamored with her. Her parents have babysat and house sat for us, and they're all good people. My youngest daughter has introduced me to a girlfriend from her trade school recently. Pretty sure she has been dating her for a couple years. She's angry, contrary, and bitter. Under all that baggage it's hard to tell, but I'm hoping that my home can be a place where she can just let whatever angers her so much disappear for a while and I can find out who she actually is. I've asked a good friend of my daughter's if there's ever been any signs of violence, as that's my only real concern, but so far it seems fine on that front. My youngest has always been a bit more subdued and contemplative than my others, so I'm hoping that whatever bitterness is in her girlfriend's life doesn't hurt her. This relationship is the most concerning one to me, because my daughter is a very sensitive person, and I fear for her happy, cheerful spirit. Edit. Thanks for the silver and gold, kind strangers smiley face. I don't know why but this post filled me with such emotion. I even got a little teary-eyed. Reminds me of my first GF's mom. I always felt like she saw right through me. But not in a bad way because I was crazy about her daughter. Just that she could tell how happy we were together and that she was happy for us. One time we got done fooling around and came back to her place. I'm in the kitchen talking to her and her mom. My shirt was inside out the whole time. Finally after a while the mom interrupts the conversation with a huge grin on her face and asks if my shirt had been inside out when we left. We both turned so red and my GF made some excuse and fled the kitchen leaving me there with her mom. The mom practically was gut laughing as I flipped my shirt right side in and put it back on. I can still feel how red my ears were to this day and how angry I was at my GF. But her mom always had this smile on her face when we spoke that made me think she knew how much I cared about her daughter. She has 2 younger siblings that I became somewhat important to, and that was the hardest part of the breakup. I have always instinctively known within seconds of meeting them. I've liked all but one of my son's partners, and the one I didn't feel right about was the one who screwed him up. My dad is the same way. But he never fucking told me. After breaking off a 2.5-year relationship and a year of being single I finally met my current GF. Only then my dad casually mentioned he saw red flags early on for all the shit that broke me and my ex up. WTF man? Tell me this shit. Edit. Yes I know sometimes it can go wrong when people try to point out red flags. It can be done well though. And me and my dad have the kind of relationship where we would rather the other said something than stay silent. Mostly though it's more that I wish I had seen them because they were not subtle. Not a mother but I'm a sister to a lovely brother. He had brought some girls in-house in his teenage years, and instantly I would know if I liked them or not. The first one he brought was super rude with me and my parents. She would eat alone in the bedroom when we are having dinner, force my brother to be mean to me, etc. A few months after the relationship ended in a really bad way. After that brought some girls, didn't talk so much with them but they were nice and sweet, didn't last long, less than 2 months. The last one he brought, when I talked to her, just one thought came to mind, she's the one. 5 or 6 years later, here they are, living together. My stepdaughter's boyfriend came into my house and we were talking about computer games and he had the audacity to tell me why Red Dead 2 was better than God of War. In my house. But respect to the lad for that, he stuck to his principles and a year later still argues with me about gaming stuff. You should have started calling him boy in your best Kratos voice. Nothing asserts dominance like a good Kratos impression. It's about respect, if she treats him right, and compatibility. On the other end, not her dad, but my girlfriend's roommate is this old grizzled Marine dude. She told me that he liked me because I didn't try to get him to like, which apparently most people do. I was just myself and acted naturally, which he appreciated. Just be yourself and the people that will like you, and the people who won't. But always be respectful. You bought him a box of crayons, admit it. Nothing bribes Marines like a nice boxed lunch. Not a parent so I called my mom. She stated and I quote, "I like all of them until they give me reason not to. Then I never tell you whether I like them or not, so I don't influence your own judgment. I cannot choose for you, although sometimes I wish I could. Mrs. Unappreciated son. Edit 2. Yes, I'm aware that my mother appreciates me as many pointed out lol. It's not her that's the concern. But I appreciate you guys sticking up for my mom, even when it's not directed to her. Thank you guys for pointing it out, hopefully this fixes it. I like your mom dude, thumbs up light skin tone. Calm down bro, she's married. Not a parent but my parents have talked about my boyfriends. They liked most of them but my dad said there was one he specifically didn't like right away. I dated that guy for over a year before he cheated on me with his ex and left me for her. My dad said he didn't like that guy because he reminded him of his ex-wife who did the same thing to him. Some people just have good gut instincts. Here's my dad's take. He liked my ex-BF at first because he was initially polite and friendly, and I was very happy with him. However, my dad started to notice red flags later on and his opinion of him changed. For example, when we came back to my place from a day trip, he had sulked because I didn't show the enthusiasm he wanted about his favorite landmark. My dad told him that he should forgive me, but he still would not stop whining. My dad later told me that his reaction was blown out of proportion. Basically my dad would decide whether or not to like any guy the first bring home based on the way he treats me. Edit, I did not show zero interest in what my ex liked. I just wasn't as over-the-top excited as he wanted me to be. Well, they've all been fine so far. Except for one. It's the only time I've ever gotten mad enough to kick someone out of my home. He tried to get me to believe that he didn't know what a potato was. My eldest is 15, and boys in high school can be gross. The way they speak to girls, and girls to boys, is just so far out of line it makes me ill. But her boyfriend is respectful to her and her family. Most importantly they're the same brand of weird. They FaceTime 19 hours a day I swear, but yesterday they had an entire conversation about penguins both using the same weird fake Russian type accent. He's her safe place and without very good cause, I'd never get in the way of that. They're fellow comrades. We're all fellow comrades, comrade. Well, my mother's decision is 90% based on if she's Catholic or not, can't say I'm a fan of her method. Lol, same here. Gonna be a rough one when she meets my family and mom's like nah, gonna support my girl the whole way through though, easy decision. Edit, changed pronouns to clear up possible confusion. You know, I thought my mother would be the same way. Raised Catholic so I expected that my wife would need to be Catholic too. Just got married to my Muslim wife last month and my mom threw her bridal shower because she loves her more than she loves me, and because the feeling was definitely not reciprocated my wife's family. People suck. My mom always said that it didn't matter what color or background as long as she was Catholic. Well, turns out that he was Catholic. Checkmate. She got over it after a while. Outstanding move. I had to read this a lot to understand. It's about respect. If they're treating my kid, spouse or myself like shit in our own home, how do you think I'll feel? Some politeness goes a long way and of course it's a two-way street. Chances are you also know your kids well enough to notice if this person is a total 180 from their usual friends or previous so or whatever, sometimes a red flag but not always. You've likely had experience with them bringing over someone from the wrong crowd, and this is honestly not that different. It's all about how you see them treat others, but since they're probably teenagers, you can't read too much into things like what they want to do when they grow up and so on. I'd hope by your 40s or whatever you'd know enough about how to tell if someone's head is screwed on properly or not. It's still important to let them explore and learn the odd rough lesson on their own. You constantly weighing in on how much you disapprove of their so only drives them further to them. Although you don't want to be too late to interfere if things are getting a little too out of control, like that dad who killed his daughter's boyfriend for getting her into hard drugs and ruining her life, don't let it get there. At the end of the day, no one can get them to break up except themselves. They have to learn what's best for them and figure it out on their own. Don't meddle too much. I feel excited for them. It's that wonderful time at the start of a new relationship and it's exciting to see them happy and enjoying this new experience. It's still quite new for me and them, so as a parent I'm still learning. I've been fine with all the people I've been introduced to so far, maybe as I know that the likelihood is these relationships won't last, so for me it's not an issue if I don't take to them. Time will tell once their relationships become more serious. One kid started dating at 15. Dates all through college, never broke up and been married 8 years, so you never know. My son started dating a classmate at age 11. It was on and off like you would expect at that age, but they started officially dating at 14. They'll be 17 soon, and I'm curious to see what happens. We love her like a daughter and would hate to lose her. But that's not really my call. My parents both instantly liked the first super nerdy boy I brought home. He didn't even have to talk before my dad was beaming at him. It was weird tbh. I married the nerdy guy, so their instincts were good, so I DK. ETA, my first silver. Thank you kind Reddit stranger fam. My stepmom is pretty anti-nerd, so I was always nervous when my super nerdy husband and I visited. They just seemed like oil and water, with zero in common. Then one day they hung out for 4 hours together in a hospital waiting room while I underwent surgery. To this day I have no idea what they talked about, but my stepmom is now my husband's second biggest fan. She will gush about what a good guy he is for me, and how happy she is that I married him. I really wish I could have heard that conversation. He fixed her iPhone. I said, whatever you do to my daughter, I will do to you. I've been stuck giving him emotional support and validation for 3 years. That fucking bastard. He played you like a fiddle. I am nice to my son's girlfriend and my daughter's boyfriend. It's not my job to have an opinion on who they choose. If it all goes belly up, I'm there to support them until the next one goes wrong. Rinse and repeat until they find their one, or I'm dead. I've been the hated boyfriend for no reason. It really sucks and affects the relationship. My ex makes no secret of her opinions on the kids' partners. The only thing that does is stops them talking to her about issues they have in their relationships. I love to meet his girlfriends. In a very self-serving way, I think his ability to attract charming ladies reflects the quality of my parenting. On one hand, I like whoever brings joy to his life. On the other hand, I prefer to be around polite and well-spoken people. A bit of nervousness on her part indicates that meeting me is important to her. Knowing that being nervous about meeting family can be endearing is good to hear, as somebody who is a very nervous person in general. My husband and I always like the person unless there's something terribly wrong with them. First of all, we want our kids to trust us and never to disregard our not liking a potential mate because we never like anyone. Secondly, we would never want our kids to feel like they have to choose, it's their mate, not ours. Thirdly, most young people are fairly okay, so no point in acting like no one can be good enough for our precious babies. I first met one of my kids' partners when they both joined us on a weekend away. We had a discussion on some general subject in which he disagreed with me. He defended his position rather than defer to me. Good chap. My Phil and I disagreed on something mundane not more than 15 minutes after we met. He immediately told me that I am as ugly as a crocodile, his favorite insult. I laughed at that and it puzzled him that I am not intimidated. I told him that it is exactly the kind of thing my own dad would say when losing an argument. At the end of the evening, he told me that I have good manners and that he is proud of his daughter. Rip, Phil. Just because you disagreed with him doesn't mean you have to kill him. Geez. I don't have to like him. My daughter has to like him. Just like hairstyles. Doesn't matter if I like your hairstyle or not, you're the one who has to wear it. Now, if my daughter asks me advice, or asks my opinion, I'll be honest with her, even if it may hurt, because I care about her and I only want to see her happy. But if I'm not asked, I will welcome the guy, be friendly and kind to him, and keep my opinions to myself. Why? Because she chose him, and if that makes her happy, then I'm happy.